We are live coming at you with another episode of George in the Jungle, presented by Remington Tavern. Remington Tavern can be found at 8892 Glendale Milford Road, 45140, where they have daily happy hour from 3 to 7 p.m., $5 bourbon whiskey Wednesdays, bottle cap bonanza Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m. Check them out on Instagram at RemyTavCincy. That's REMITAV Cincy with a Y, or follow them on Facebook. And with that, George.
Yo,
Welcome back in for another week, sir.
great to be here. Hope you had a good week.
Yeah, so far we've kept the kid alive. So we are quickly approaching 1 month for the newest member of our family.
How about that? Congratulations on that. Be
Yeah.
ready for a big 4th of July coming up here in a couple of days. And
Yeah, I think
are
we're
you
gonna
a
actually try.
fireworks guy or not a fireworks guy?
I love fireworks.
Yeah.
I blame that. I blame that on the Labor Day fireworks. Truthfully, more so than I think I went to more Labor Day shows than I did actual like 4th of July shows.
Right.
Growing up as a kid.
Well, yeah. And around here, I get it because the big one is
Right.
Labor Day around here. But there's still some good 4th of July shows. And, obviously you walk out to any neighborhood and you're going to see a bunch of stuff getting shot off. I remember there was a guy in my neighborhood when my kids were little, and he got the what do they call it? Artillery shells, which I love. Do you know what those are? The balls you drop in,
Yeah,
they shoot up. And this guy shot. So I would call him what this guy's last name was. They were Godels, and I'd be like, I'm going to get a bunch of Godels this year. So my kids grew up thinking that's what these things were called. So they go to a fireworks store and they're asking for Godels. And these people are like, what the hell are you talking about? Finally, they were able to zero in on it. But yeah, 4th of July is a lot of fun. And, just hopefully everybody be safe out there because, a lot of this stuff you can go awry on if you're shooting it off yourself. Anymore, I just leave it to the professionals. But when I was younger, I probably shot off some stuff.
sounds about right.
Oh, yeah, hundreds of dollars worth of stuff, especially where I was from. When you were out in the country, anything goes out there.
Yeah.
So,
do you have any?
People can get hurt with that stuff.
Do you have any plans yourself for the holiday?
I'm going to take it as it comes and see what happens. I'm just going to play golf Friday, but on Thursday, I'm going to see, just kind of ride it out and go with the flow and probably end up grilling something or bumming from somebody else in the neighborhood and eat their food. We'll figure it out. I'll take it as it comes, though.
We're gonna do smash burgers and dogs here. So
that sounds so good.
Yeah, the 9-year-old said I want your smash burgers. I'm like, I done and done, sir. Done and done.
Good.
So we went out and picked up all the stuff today to make sure we didn't miss out on shitty buns or something like that. So
I'm going to run into that tomorrow. I should have taken care of that today, and I didn't. That was a fail on my part. So I'll be up and at 'em tomorrow taking care of that stuff.
All right. Well, let's get into it.
Yes.
First things first. You're the last. We're kind of the last show in the rotation to touch on this topic. But Dante Corleone was diagnosed late last week with the blood clots to the lungs and is out at this point indefinitely. We'll see when he's able to get back on the field and get back to any type of football activities. Staff has been working on treating it, and who knows where they're at with any and all of that. I imagine they're going to be pretty mum on talking publicly about anything going on with anything with Dante's health. But obviously a very scary situation and something that has to be taken extremely seriously.
Yeah, and this kind of stuff happens, but when it does, it's just so darn shocking. And we're talking about young people, and you hate for them to go through this and have this happen and be, something this serious. The good news is he's in great hands. He sees the right people every day, and now the right people are taking care of him, and it's something they were able to get to right away, and they'll figure out a path forward. I don't know football wise, career wise, what this does. Obviously, there's been people who have had this and have been able to go on and have productive athletic careers, and we hope that's the case. And it's just, I don't know. To me, it just sucks my breath away because, that's something an old dude like me is supposed to deal with, stuff like that. Not a college football player. And obviously there's been, more serious situations than this one, but this is serious. And it does knock you for a little bit of a loop, and you pray for him and hope everything's right. And I'm sure they're on top of it. And it's just, that's your first reaction. Then you start thinking about the football side of it, and you just pray he's able to be okay and come through this and have the kind of productive career I think he can have, not just at this collegiate level, but beyond. So we'll see how that plays out. But he is in good hands, and it's a blow for the team. There's no doubt about it. When you have, because he's kind of like, I mean, he's kind of a heart and soul of this team and a leader that has kept everything on track, as bad as last year was. And he just kept everything on track as far as the team and the off season, and was one of the guys saying, I'm back and I'm all in. And so that guy's a leader. And you just pray like hell for himself and the good of the team. I mean, it is a blow for the football team, but if he gets through it, I think he will. But I'm not a medical guy. I just feel like young guys have a much better chance to get through, bounce back, so hopefully they get it under control and all that, and hopefully the whole team will be better for it, because it's one of those things that it gets your attention, and he's one of those glue guys that not only do you want in the field, you want in the locker room, you want everywhere, in the meeting rooms. But it was a shock. It's just such a shame. But he can get through it. We'll see where it leads. But man, oh man, it's been a couple of years for this team, and this is just the latest chapter.
It's that. The crazy thing is those non-football injuries are usually the damnedest. And you just never know what to make about those non-sport injuries. And we certainly look forward to seeing him on the other side of all of this, and we'll see how it goes day by day.
This guy's a horse too. I mean, he's a guy I knew some people that were involved in some of the workouts and stuff, and just the strength of this guy, and just the he capitalizes on it, but his natural ability is just off the charts, and it's just so jarring that a specimen can have things like that happen, but they do. We hear about it from time to time, but again, we pray for the best, and others have come through it, and I feel like if anybody can, the Godfather will pull through, and hopefully, he can continue his career.
On a much lighter note regarding the Bearcats football team, media poll came out today for the Big 12, and it has Utah at number 1, Kansas State number 2, Oklahoma State number 3, Kansas at 4, Arizona at 5, Iowa State at 6, West Virginia at 7, UCF at 8, Texas Tech at 9, TCU at 10, Colorado at 11, Baylor at 12, BYU at 13. Your Bearcats come in at 14, Houston at 15, and Arizona State at 16. Anything stand out to you there, George?
Yeah. Number 1, that's a hell of a conference. Seriously, top to bottom, that's tough. That's a hell of a conference. that's one thing when you see them stacked up like that, the order they have them in, and you know, I know media guys don't know what the hell they're talking about because I was one of them for a long time.
Yeah, we're all gas bags.
Yeah, exactly, they are. That's a good way to put it. But I can't argue with where Cincinnati is because they haven't proven anything, and they've got. Do you know what Cincinnati has when they take the field? I mean, you hope for the best, but you don't know till this combination is out there. And you know they've had the change on the defensive side of the ball, and they've had the change in the entire defensive backfield. Um, you know, you've got a new quarterback coming in. There's a million moving parts with this Bearcat team, on the field and off the field. So based on what we saw last fall, based on what we saw, the way the Bearcats performed against competent Big 12 teams last year, I can't argue with that. I can't. And if you look at the top of that freaking conference, I mean, Jesus, that's tough. I mean, if you look at the way Iowa State and West Virginia both steamrolled the Bearcats the way they did, and that's what am I looking at? That's 5 or 6 and 7, and they rolled the Bearcats. Correct. So you know it's that's a tough conference, and UC has its work cut out for it, as we well know. We also know it's a media poll, and it's a team full of unknowns. And I would say this, based on going into last season as opposed to this season, I'll roll with this season with all those unknowns than what you had last year. Now, they had an unknown at quarterback. Well, somewhat of an unknown. I mean, Emory Jones was, you know, it was same old because, you know, people thought his talent was up here, but his performance was kind of like this coming in. And that's kind of what we got for UC. And, you know, the kid played his butt off, but, you know, you are what you are after 4 seasons or whatever it was. So, you know, with Sorsby coming in at quarterback and being, you know, the offensive heart and soul, and, you know, the entire offensive line back. I mean, I expect a lot out of this running game this year. With the running backs they brought in the offseason, the offensive line coming back, I expect with the way Satterfield tries to dominate with that running game, I expect good things for the Bearcats. But I cannot argue with this poll and where they are, because you don't know until you see it on the field. And look, last year, we thought after the Pitt game, this was going to be a pretty good UC team that they'd kind of.
Oh, I remember.
Right? And it went off the rails. So you don't know until you get into this conference stuff exactly what you have. And when you're going up against this slate, and I'll tell you what, you look at these teams and you see how some of these teams are recruited, and Kansas State just getting that commitment from that 5-star tight end. This is a hell of a conference. I know everyone's Big Ten, SEC, and I get it. I understand that. But this thing ain't far behind.
Yeah, Cincinnati had 1 conference win last year. That is correct, 1 conference win. So them being at 14 is almost a favor, I guess. As the only team that they beat was Houston. So yeah. They are ranked above Houston, who had a coaching change. So we'll see. And Arizona State's been a dumpster fire since Marvin Lewis.
BYU, is that the game I'm thinking of? Yeah.
Or
remember the punt that got hit.
You could say the same for Baylor as well, but
yeah,
I digress.
Yeah, no, right. But yeah, you look up there, and I mean, the West Virginia game was an embarrassment. Yep. Iowa State, they got their ass kicked. Yep. Oklahoma State, they just got absolutely kicked in the you-know-whats in the second half. It was embarrassing.
But Cincinnati, actually, they only play one of those top 5 teams. I believe Kansas State is the only one that they play on their schedule.
And for that, I'll say thank God. Because that's tough. That is tough at the top.
Yep, Kansas State, the only team on that of the top five. They do play, however, 6, 7, 8, 9. So they do play a fair slate of them. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
11.
So yeah, 11. So they'll certainly face some, and who knows where this thing all goes, because
But
as you pointed out at the very beginning,
to me,
it's
they need a schedule like that's not top heavy, because they got to get they got to get their legs under them this year. This program has got to take a step forward. And quite honestly, it's not just the good of the fan base, but the coaching staff to take a step forward. We got to see something to believe in to continue down this road. And I am in no way, shape, or form saying, "Oh, you pull the plug after 1 year." Remember all that going on last season? Everyone's like, "This guy's got." I mean, come on.
I do.
But we'll see.
But
we'll see. But we do want to see a bit of a step forward. We got to see some competitive games in this conference.
And you brought up all the question marks. You have an entire new defensive scheme under an entirely new defensive coordinator. If anybody could name who the 5 defensive backs are going to be when the team takes the field game 1, I'd love to have that list, because I have no idea. I don't know anyone who has any idea who those top 5 are going to be. We all have guesses, but who's to say? I think that is a giant question mark. You'll still have a position battle at quarterback, at tight end, at receiver. So there's position battles littered up and down this entire roster on both sides of the ball. Dante might have had the most solid position of anyone not named Luke Kandra on this team, and Dante's position is now potentially up in the air. So who knows? We'll see. Plenty of question marks, and I'm with you. I don't think you can give them any more respect than 14. And truthfully, the way that this offseason has been going, and the way that they've been kind of beating the drum on being gritty and being Clifton tough and wanting to get back to that kind of mantra, getting back to nothing given, everything earned, and all of that, I think that this is nothing but a good thing. You have to be kicked in the teeth over and over and over and over again until you can rise up out of the ashes and be who this team aspires to be.
It really is. And it does, as you know, as a fan base and people who follow and love the program, it hurts that you were in that college football playoff just a few years ago.
Right.
And now you're 14th in a conference. I mean, that's a hell of a fall from grace, but that's what it is. And that's something I hope kicks everybody's butt into gear and puts a Bunsen burner under them. I mean, they need it.
So that is the news in the Cincinnati football world. Cincinnati Reds are currently playing. It is 5-4 in the top of the 8th. After an Aaron Judge home run, just the end of the last inning. I did want to point out that Luke Dream Weaver is on the mound for the New York Yankees, and we'll see how that goes for him. So far, he got Nick Martini out, because no surprise there.
Aaron Judge is a freak. Like, I mean, this role he's on over the past month plus is epic. It's historic. They went back and did all these numbers, and it's like Ruth, Gehrig, Barry Bonds, and God, there was probably somebody else in that class that had this kind of a run. But it's an incredible run, and he's leading the Triple Crown categories in the American League. When he's healthy, he is an absolute bear, and I do not want him to do any more tonight. He's done enough. He's on my fantasy team, but I don't need any more out of Aaron Judge tonight. Let's just make it a 5-4 final. And we were talking before we came on the air about this game, and getting 5 shutout innings out of Graham Ashcraft, the way he's looked
right
up to this point, was great. But you've got to know, you got to pull that ripcord quick after he's got 5 shutout innings in Yankee Stadium. And, they don't have Rizzo and Stanton in the lineup, but that's still a pretty good lineup as they're like 22 games over 500 or something stupid like that. That's a good lineup. So you got to know if you get 5 shutout innings out of Ashcraft, you might get 6, but you also got to be ready to get his ass out of there, right?
Yeah, and they weren't quite ready, and that unfortunately played out. But we'll see. Right now, Dreamweaver's doing what he needs to do.
I would have let him go a few hitters, but once I saw trouble, it's like, damn, I'm on house money.
Blood was certainly in the water. But you bring up historic numbers, and Jonathan India last week was the National League Player of the Week. He set a new Reds record for most games in a row with a double, which who saw that coming, especially at the beginning of the season when John India was struggling for a vast majority of the first, I guess, third of the season. But he's been on a tear, as good as anybody in all of baseball. He's just been phenomenal. A 538 average last week, a 923 slugging percentage, 1.536 OPS, 8 runs, 10 doubles, 1 week. Goodness gracious. The Cincinnati Reds couldn't have put it any better. Definition of video game numbers on the tweet that they put out. Unreal.
That's been ridiculous. And Sunday they got 2 hits, and one of them was an India double to continue that streak. Right, which is an insane streak. And what is the major league record? 9? Is that what I saw from?
I don't know the answer to that.
I think Bichette, the younger Bichette,
Bo
had that record. I'm not positive, but that's an insane record. And first of all, I can't even believe someone keeps track of that, but they do. That's baseball; they keep track of everything.
They do.
What a streak. Player of the week, 12-game hitting streak, 8 straight games with a double. He hit over 500. Here's what I'm thinking. Okay? This is goofy. But so Jonathan India, pretty much seen as an extra piece in the offseason because you got De La Cruz, you got McLean, you got all this.
Marte.
And he's a value to this club because he is a leader. He's a leader. He takes his team and shakes them, and he did it last year in spring training. He's like, I'm glad nobody expects anything. I'm glad everyone thinks we suck because we got a bunch of good young players that are going to be coming up, and we're going to surprise some people. I'll be damned he was right. Would you, with the glut of infield help they have on hand right now, would you ever consider trading him while he's hot right now?
I guess that's if you're considering this season over, you trade him. But if you'd have to get a hell of a return at this point.
Think about it. Am I nuts for saying that?
I think you have to think about it because right now, as things currently stand, you don't have a timetable for McLean's return if he comes back this season. You don't.
Right.
CES is done for this season. So I don't know.
And I'm not saying I would trade him, but then you got to think if all these guys are coming back, all these guys are going to be healthy and productive. Then you're back where you were in the offseason. Like, where the hell do we put Jonathan India? What do you do?
I think it would have to be a pretty good return as far as filling a hole. If you're able to get a dude corner outfielder, or you'd have to have, it couldn't be a rental player. It couldn't be a 2-year player. You'd have to get somebody back who's going to it'd probably be prospects, honestly.
Right. It would probably end up being promising prospects, but they better be damn good before I trade them because baseball is a game where you always lose guys with injuries that you don't count on. Look what happened to the Reds this year. He's a pretty valuable piece.
I guess I'm looking at wild card and I'm looking at the fact that they're 4.5 out. And if you're 4.5 out and you trade a guy, because Like I brought up CES and McLean, you don't have timetables on them. You expect McLean back in maybe August, but you don't know what shape he's going to be in.
That's not guaranteed. Correct.
It's not guaranteed. You don't know what shape he's going to be in. If you're making a playoff push, if you're buyers and not sellers, then you potentially are making the postseason where you don't have Noel V. Marte available in the postseason. So who do you have playing your infield? If there's any other injuries, you are up Schitt's Creek.
Right. And I'm throwing it out there, and I'm not necessarily giving up on this year. However, these last couple of weeks have I don't want to say demoralized, but they've made me think, you know what? There's something not right this year. There's
let me give you this stat and see if this helps any, because they potentially could make this stat even longer after tonight if they win this game. But this comes from Gingersaurus Rex on Twitter. The Reds have won 4 of their last 19 series. They've won the opener in 13 of those 19 series. If they win tonight and lose the series against the Yankees, that would be winning the opener of 14 of 20 series and still losing 16 of the series if they lose the series against the Yankees and win tonight.
That's got to be some kind of record.
That's crazy.
Record. It is. It's nuts. I mean, they won the first game of the Cardinals series, then a loss, then a win, then a loss. And if you look at that series, and this is the Reds, this is what frustrates all of us. Every single one of us that watches this team night in and night out. 16 hits on Thursday, right?
Yep.
It was fun. Hey, the Redlegs, they score 11 runs. On Friday, they get shut out and have 4 hits. Then on Saturday, 13 hits and 9 runs. Hey, this is great. They're back. They're going to do something. Then comes Sunday, and it's 2 hits and no runs. They get shut out again. And Lance Lynn was on his game that day. I get it. But you can't let that happen to you. They're too inconsistent. And Jonathan India did talk about that. It may have been after the first one. I think it was the first one. He's like, we can't let this keep happening. But it does. It's I don't know what to think of them other than they're what they are. I think I've seen enough this year. And so that's why I'm thinking, my God, do you trade India for a stud prospect pitcher if you can get that? I don't know if you can, but if you can. I don't know. I mean, I'm just spitballing here. I'm just thinking out loud. Because if you ask me if they're going to win the World Series this year, they ain't.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't. You'd have to make some moves. You'd certainly have to make some moves, and they'd have to be buyers instead of just standing still or trying to.
But to me, spinning a guy off like that who's on a hot streak for a dude that may help you for years to come in this starting rotation or even in the bullpen is worth considering. But we'll see. It's going to be so interesting. I agree. So glad I don't have Nick Kral's job, because I mean, I don't know what you do with this. It's schizophrenic. And
there are days I wonder if Nick Krall wants Nick Kral's job. But
yeah, I don't blame him, because that's a lot. And there's that's high stakes poker, man. That is high stakes poker, and it's fun to watch. And then you look at how Carson Spires has been pitching. And this is like a dude. So he was one of those guys in 2020 when they had 5 rounds of the draft, I think it was. So he didn't get drafted, so they signed him as a free agent because there were only 5 rounds because there was no baseball season for amateur baseball, all that stuff. So that guy has shown some promise that he may be a guy you can pay. I don't know. and I'm speaking out of my, over the last couple of starts, but he's shown growth. He
Yeah.
has shown growth. So I don't know. It's an intriguing season, but God, it is so frustrating. And this runs this night, no runs the next. It drives you crazy, but that's baseball.
Well, we'll see what's to happen. It's a long season, and we are not even at the All-Star break yet. But there's
Another
plenty
thing
more.
that I just frustrates me is some of the defense. And your boy Brantley is done with Stewart out in center field. And he did it again tonight.
I love the
ball. Well, when he threw a ball home and the run's going to score and you let the guy go to second that hit the single, that's not smart.
No, the pitcher actually cut it off. Yeah, the pitcher had to cut it off.
And run. Okay, the run's going to score.
Yep.
Now the important thing is that dude rounding first. Don't let him get the set. Don't give him a free pass. So they need TJ Friedel back in a heartbeat.
Well, this is what they run into an awful lot when they're playing people out of position. The other night you had Hurtubise playing out of position in, I believe, right field, if I'm not mistaken. And you had Espinal playing his first career game in left field in the same game. You got two guys playing positions they've never played before.
Right.
You can't be surprised when you have terrible defense.
Major league level. But all my running of the mouth the last 10 minutes, I guess the bottom line is they have gotten screwed on all these injuries because there's guys just having to, they're just having to cover things that they shouldn't have to cover. But all that being said, I mean, when I played, yeah, okay, maybe if you switched my position, it wouldn't be, I wouldn't be the most prepared, but I could probably somewhat competently fill in. But I mean, I kind of know what base to throw to because I would be thinking ahead. But I don't know. Maybe that's something people don't do anymore.
All the injuries goes back to conversations we've had about this training staff and whatever.
Yeah. And that's part of it that makes you wonder. But again, there's still some season left, but I just feel like we see what they are, and they're a very frustrating bunch.
Now, that all said, we know last year they didn't make a bunch of moves or anything. I think Sam Mole might have been the only guy that they picked up at the trade deadline, if I'm not mistaken. And then they waited until they plucked some guys off of the waiver wire, where we saw Hunter Renfroe and what's the other guy that came from the Angels? In any case,
Christ, I can't remember either.
Yeah, I should have had them written down. But in any case, two guys are available right now. One that was DFA'd and one that opted for free agency. That I wanted to know if you would kick the tires on. One name familiar with the Reds, one name not familiar with the Reds, but a familiar enough name. Tim Anderson was DFA'd today. He was an all-star. He was a phenom. He called himself the next Jackie Robinson. Then he got laid out at second base, and he has not been the same since he got laid out in a fight at second base. Is Tim Anderson a guy that you might consider kicking tires on if you don't have to pay him the contract that he picked up from the Marlins?
Yeah. I mean, call me crazy.
I think I'd kick the tires. If you can pick him up after he clears waivers and you don't have to actually pay his contract that he had from the
Marlins. I would not pay. I would not take him on waivers. I would.
Right.
But hell yeah.
I think you'd have to.
You do. And I mean I can't. I mean, he had a hell of a stretch there, right?
Yes. And he's I wouldn't say 31 is old. I think there's
not on my age, it's not.
Well, and he has third base in his repertoire. Like
right.
I'm sure you could, if you want to start messing around throwing people out in corner outfield spots, I mean, who knows what you could do with Tim Anderson, but I think that would be a guy that I'd take a long,
I'll
hard
tell you
look at.
what, he's 31, which, the grind can get you a little bit in baseball, but that's still not that old. And he could probably play a corner outfield spot if you wanted him.
I think
He's athletic. That guy was an absolute freaking stud.
I think it would be interesting.
Interesting.
Another name that opted for free agency, who I just was curious to see what your thoughts are at this point in the season. You don't know what you have currently in some of your pitching. Johnny Cueto is available once again.
Oh my God. I loved Johnny Cueto. Absolutely loved him. But what I don't know, has he fallen off the shelf?
I don't think he has anything left in the tank that you would want to sacrifice getting innings out of one of your younger guys, whether that younger arm is here currently or in AAA. You got Rhett Lauder's been surging through the system. I don't know. I would not be so quick to pull the trigger on one Johnny Cueto as I would Tim Anderson.
I would agree with that. I would agree. I think Johnny's probably in the old days they would say through the book, and there's probably not much left to squeeze out of that. But I mean, if you're totally desperate, but the hell of it is, the Reds pitchers, and particularly their starting pitchers. And I will now throw in, Ashcraft's tonight was a good outing for Graham Ashcraft.
Sure, absolutely.
It wasn't good, but yeah, that was a good outing. But the rest of them have been more than acceptable. If you look at what the Reds starting pitchers have done, and God, I feel bad for Hunter Green. That poor guy gets no run support.
At all.
None. Every time he's out there. He doesn't help himself with pitch efficiency, but he's getting better. He's learning. It still amazes me how young he is. He's got such a live arm. That one would be back burner for me at best. Tim Anderson would be a guy that I would think about for sure.
That's the one I'm currently keeping my eye on, and we'll see if the Reds do end up kicking the tires, especially with the way that things in the infield have gone. And if you're messing around with guys in the outfield, if Espinal is able to do anything in the outfield, I guess that kind of does free up a spot. So we'll see. I don't know. Just thought I'd throw that out there as it's a name that's
an interesting thought, and it's
former All-Star. If he can give you anything on the infield or in the outfield, then I think that's huge. But we'll see.
No, I mean, for several years, he was one of the best players in the game, in my opinion. I mean, he did a lot of things and a lot of good things. He was,
He was top 5 shortstop.
He was probably Brandon Phillips with a better average and probably a better all-around game, although Brandon's play at second base was really, really good.
He also had a bigger attitude, so.
And that's saying something.
That is saying something. The Reds have 2 players that are going to be in the futures game in Cam Collier and Rhett Lauder, both former first-round picks. Cam Collier is currently the Reds' number 3 prospect in the system. Rhett Lauder, the number 1 prospect. Rhett Lauder, of course, a pitcher. Cam Collier, third baseman. Good to see some guys represented in the futures game, of course, and let us know that the future is still coming up through the minors.
Yeah, and it's very interesting the way they do this futures thing. Like, if you look at Rhett Lauder's raw numbers right now and what he's done this year at AA, not good. Like, he's starting to, turn the corner a little, and that's what young guys do.
Right.
But to put him in this showcase, that's what it's all about. It's about potential, future game, the guys that they think have the pop. And Cam Collier, how old is he now? Is he 19, 20?
I think he's 19.
19, yeah, I think he's 19. This is great for him. and he's hitting like 230 at Dayton or whatever, but he's popped 13 homers. He's really starting to hit his stride. That kid is 19 playing high A ball. It's amazing.
Hitting 230, that's major league numbers these days. What are you talking
Well,
about?
yeah, he'd be an all-star on the Reds team. He really would. He'd be an upgrade. But no, that's exciting. And you know, the Reds have a few more guys down there that are very, very interesting that have a chance to make some noise. But for those two to get this chance, and you know, Louder obviously looks the part out there on the mound. He's smooth. He throws that easy 97 or whatever he gets up to. It's going to do nothing but help these guys to get in that environment and be with those guys. And, you know, and they've competed with these guys on these Team USA and all these other things they're involved in summer league baseball. But it's good for them. It's very good for them. And it's good for the Reds to have these guys in the pipeline. And, you know, they're going to add to it coming up in the draft here soon. You know, they kind of got, was it last year they got screwed on the picks, but this year they bumped up. I think that's how it was. And so they got a chance to get another good one here.
We'll find out. I think we can't be far away from that.
No, that's coming up in a week or two.
The last thing Reds related that I wanted to bring up, this comes from Codify Baseball on Twitter. The Reds are paying Ken Griffey Jr. $3.59 million yesterday. He is the fifth highest paid Cincinnati Red this year.
Good for Junior. He made a hell of a deal. He ain't no dummy.
Baseball contracts are so stupid. Paying players for years and years and years after they're done. I know this happened with Bronson Arroyo. That's the last player I can think of before Junior that we did this with.
The thing was Bobby Bonilla, obviously.
That one just came as well this past week. That was the other one I was going to bring up. I think he's only on his 14th year, and I believe he has 11 more years, or maybe I have that backwards. Maybe he's on his 11th year and still has 14 more years. Either way, good on you, Bobby Bo, for getting a lot of money for years and years and years.
Smart is that for those guys?
Brilliant.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. There's a lot of guys would love to have that.
The Bobby Bonilla deal, the Mets thought that they were being brilliant because they were going to take the money that they owed him. They were going to invest it, let that money make money, and then pay Bonilla at a decreasing return because they were making money off of the money that they were supposed to pay him. You know who they took this advice from?
Probably Bernie Madoff.
Ding, 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 ding. That was their ace financial guy that advised them to do this deal with Bobby Bonilla.
I mean,
Bernie Madoff.
Bernie freaking Madoff. I mean, that is just so fun. And you know the smartest guy was? Bobby and his agent.
Bobby Bonilla.
I talked to him once, and he was the nicest guy to me.
He was
not surprised.
The opposite of Bonds.
I'm telling you, in 1990, I had to go in, and I think it was before the game. I go in the Pirates clubhouse, and these Pirates don't know me from anyone. And the Reds are getting ready to play them. And I'm like, hey, Bobby. And I'm like, I'll just take a shot, right? Can I get you outside for an interview? Da-da-da. He's like, yeah, okay, who's this for? And I go, well, I'm a local guy, Cincinnati, da-da-da. Yeah, okay, I'll be out. Dude came out and did the interview. I was impressed. I was very impressed with him. And then you ask Barry Bonds. You would ask Barry Bonds for an interview, and you know what he'd say? You got to go talk to my agent. What? Like, we can do it right now. Where's your agent? Well, he's in L.A.
That guy sucks.
Yeah, Bobby Bo was very nice.
Barry was like that Barry Bonds was like that even in his Pittsburgh days.
Oh God. Really?
I knew he was like that when he was in San Francisco and
they said that at Arizona State he used to drive his car up. He's in college and he would drive his car up and park it on the field, and the manager would have a fit, or I guess it was a coach in college, and have a fit, and they would get into it about him parking his car right next to the dugout on the field. Or said, that guy, he can pound as many rocks as there are in this country.
That's so funny. All right.
He was with a capital D.
Well, the Reds did win 5-4. So they do win the first game of the series. We'll see what they're able to do with the next two against the Yankees in New York.
Please get one. How about Graham Ashcraft getting the win? That's a good start for him. That's good. He needed that. He has not been the same. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if there's some physical thing going on. I don't know what's going on because he's got the right attitude. He's a tough guy. I don't know what was going on.
Unfortunately, John India's hit streak is over. So that does stink. But he did get hit by a pitch at one point and did score a run on his lone trip to the bags. So
he gets hit by a lot of pitches.
He does get hit by a lot of pitches. It's unreasonable.
To see the double streak go by the boards, that was a really cool, odd thing. That's just so weird. And when he hit that ball the other day, it was Sunday. And that outfielder looked like he had a bead on it. And then all of a sudden, you could tell the outfielder knew he was burned. And he just turns around and waits for it to bounce off the wall. And then they only get 2 hits that game. So hopefully they can follow it up with a decent night tomorrow. But that's a good win for the boys. They need to go on a string here.
Also worth mentioning, Noelvi Marte played in his 5th game of the season. He is now 3 of 17 after tonight. Not great. He did nothing tonight. He walked. That was it.
Well, and he wasn't good before he came back up after he did his minor league stint, but hopefully he'll get back on. He showed a lot of promise last year. Obviously, he's shown a lot of promise since he's been signed. And I think I said 3 of that's got a hold of him. So
I think I said 3 of 17. That's 3 of 20. He's 3 of 20 on the season.
That's even worse.
Yeah, not great. That all said, the Reds now stand at 40-45, 10 games back in the division, and in the wild card, they are 4.5 games out, with 4 teams ahead of them, including Pittsburgh and St. Louis holding one of those wild card spots. So we will see what they're able to do. 4th place in the division, 5 games under 500. Still plenty of baseball left, as you're only 85 games in, and that's still just over half. So we'll see what they're able to string together. I still would love to see them as buyers as opposed to sellers, but you're not looking to rent anybody if you are buyers, I wouldn't imagine.
No, I don't think so either. But still, they should, and I'm sure they will explore everything they can. So they had 2 home runs tonight?
They did. Ellie had 1, and Will Benson got 1. Benson got 1. Not in that order. Benson got his first, and then Ellie.
They had 1 home run in the last week going into this game tonight. It's just like the bats have been so weird. As hot as India's been, well, most of the team has really, really, really struggled. So it's good to see him get some pop tonight. So we'll see. Hopefully they can string something together here, but I'm still thinking the way I was before tonight, and that is I've seen enough, and they'll be somewhere around probably 10 games under what I said they would be at the beginning of the year.
Well, we will, like I said, plenty of baseball left. Did want to switch gears one last time as we touch on FC Cincinnati and 3 guys going to the All-Star game. We'll start there. Luciano Acosta, who that surprises nobody at this point in time. Lucho is really, really good. Miles Robinson also is going to the All-Star game. And Luca, what is it, Orellano? Oriano? There you go.
He had the goal the other night in Dallas.
Yeah, I know. I had Acosta on the goal.
Guy's not a big guy either. Obviously Acosta isn't. But he's a weapon. He's a good weapon for them to have.
I bet Acosta on that one. I was trying because I was trying to make money there.
I don't blame you. It was worth a shot.
But 3 All-Stars, good to see, and they get the win. Following a draw as well, right?
Yeah, they got 6 straight wins on the road though, which is pretty impressive. Actually, that's you don't in that league, you don't go on the road and win like that. So, but they've been really, really, really good. After that early season doldrum where they couldn't seem to find the net, they have done one hell of a job. And, they got the game on the road tomorrow night at DC United. Then the big old matchup between the two, number 1 and number 2 in the Eastern Conference, Cincinnati and Inter Miami on Saturday night.
Yeah, Cincinnati now stands 13-3-4 in the 20 games they've played. Miami has played 21, and Cincinnati's only 2 points behind Miami. So just as easily, they could be right there when they catch up on games. So we'll see what happens. Inter Miami, obviously no slouch because the entire sport has changed the rules, including allowing Apple to assist in every way that they can to get the best player in all of the sport on Inter Miami. But
I know.
I don't understand. But we'll see.
Well, I know it's my God. It's you see how it's good for MLS though, right?
Sure.
I know.
You just don't understand how only one team's able to operate that way.
Correct. That's the problem. But I don't know if you're the rest of the league and you're trying to get where they're going. And I understand. But, man, that's it's certainly good for the league to have him involved.
Sure. I agree. But Cincinnati does have DC United coming up here. What day is that?
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, yeah. DC standing at 4-8-9. So Cincinnati is not favored to win this game. Or no, I'm sorry, not heavily favored, but favored to win this game.
What's crazy too, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, is those, they won 1-0 in Dallas. I think Orellano, he had the goal in that game. They're 25-5 now in 1-goal differential games since the beginning of 2023, which you just think that at some point, right? Does that have to even out a little bit? Like 25-5 in soccer in 1-goal differential game. That is crazy. So I hope it doesn't. I hope it's not one of those things that kind of levels out at some point. But that's a hell of a run. That's hard. You can't explain it. You cannot explain it. Although I'm sure, Pat Noonan probably has a good explanation for it, but it just does not compute with me.
Well, we saw the Reds on the other side of that scale at the beginning of the season, so
they really have.
Weird.
That's where it's evening out.
Sports are weird. Some other news that I saw just hit Twitter. Alex Blandino and his knuckleballer with Daytona tonight. 3 innings pitched, 1 hit, no runs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts.
I am intrigued by this.
What a strange career path for that man.
So strange, and he's been talking to guys like Wakefield and Candiotti, and then not Wakefield, but Candiotti, and there was somebody else I saw he talked to.
Well, how many times can you remember him coming into games during garbage time to pitch knuckle? He did it. I can think off the top of my head. I feel like there were probably somewhere between 3 and 5 times when he was up with the Reds that he would come in, and the guy didn't. It's not like he stuck around with the Reds very long. He was only up here for a couple seasons,
3 years, right?
Bouncing back and forth between AAA and the bigs.
Former first-round pick, by the way. Now he was a late pick in the first round and was a shortstop out of college,
finding a way to stick around.
Yeah, he always fooled around with it and threw some, because the Reds would use him in garbage time to pitch, like you said.
Yeah.
And he'd fire a knuckleball up there every now and then. And I'm all for it. I want to see him succeed with this. I think it would be fantastic. And, he was a good guy when he was up here. Good clubhouse guy, the whole 9 yards. It's funny. I did read an article about him being back in, where is he now? Daytona? Is that where he is?
Yes.
So being back there, think about it. It's like the Bull Durham thing. This is a guy who's 31 years old, and he's back there with all those prospects riding on buses to ball games and telling them what it's like in the show. It's hilarious. And that's his life now. But hopefully it works out for him. I will tell you, if I could have stuck around, like some people are like, what's this guy doing? He's 30 years old and he's still playing in the minor leagues. I would have done that. If I could have done that, I would have done that. I'd be like, let me go till I play out the string. And then I'll go. I don't care if I'm, driving a garbage truck or whatever I'm doing. Seriously.
A school bus like Joey Votto.
On to the last gasp in baseball if I'd had enough talent. If I could have scuffled around in the minor leagues for 10, 15 years, I mean, that would have been so much fun. Can you imagine you get up and that's your gig?
Yep.
Especially if you're a pitcher, because I'm sorry, those dudes got it made, especially starting pitchers. Because you go and you pitch one game, then you're off for 4 games. And you get in, you're running and you do this. But you go to the park and I can just sit there and have a couple hot dogs and a beer because I'm not going to be in the game at all. If you're a starting, now that's not Blandino's in the bullpen, I believe. And he's pitching relief with this knuckleball. But I would love to see him make it. Did he start tonight?
No, he pitched end of the game.
Yeah. Because the article was funny because he talked about, he always wondered what the hell those guys did in the bullpen the whole game. He's like, you're sitting out there sleeping and stuff. And then he got out there and he's like, some guys are doing their work. Some guys are doing this, but you're also kind of watching the game. It was funny. It was a funny article. My buddy Mark Sheldon wrote that article and did an interview with him. And it was very funny. It was Bull Durham Deluxe.
The other 2 stats I did want to point out before we get out of here, as I know you don't have anything high school related at this point in the year. Joey Votto gets his first hit of the season in AAA as he's in a rehab stint still on Canada Day for the Toronto Blue Jays. So good on him for that. And Ellie De La Cruz, this comes courtesy of Sarah Langs. most games with at least one triple and one home run in his first 185 career games since 1901. There are only 2 players, Ellie De La Cruz, and today was game 183 for him, and Ted Williams, the only other person who's ever done that.
That's insane.
Also at 5.
That's an insane stat. I'd love to see Ellie do it again in the next couple of games to beat the. Wouldn't he? So if he did it 3 times, that would be better than Ted, right?
That would be. He's got 2 games to do it.
Let's hope he does it.
That's
an interesting stat. That's very interesting.
That's Sarah Langs for you.
That's insane.
All right. Unless you got anything else, George.
I think I'm tapped out.
Fair enough. Well, that's going to wrap it up then for George Vogel and myself. Another episode of George in the Jungle in the books. Again, brought to you as always by Remington Tavern. You can find them at 8892 Glendale Milford Road, 45140, where they have their daily happy hour from 3 to 7 p.m., $5 bourbon whiskey Wednesdays, bottle cap bonanza Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m. You can find them on Instagram at RemyTavCincy or follow them on Facebook. But for George Vogel, I will see you next week on Tuesday, 9 o'clock, as always. And we'll do it all over again. See you then.
Thank you, Aaron. And I respect